question for you, David. I want to know more about special love relationships. This house has heard me say this word a lot since I've been here, but potent. Why is it so potent? And why is there 9 chapters of it in the chorus? It seems like such a tough one. I don't understand why.
Well, the divine metaphysics help give a little bit of a context where you start to see that the addiction to this, I'm calling it this finite chaos, is the attraction to death. There's an attraction to death for the mind that's asleep. It's now become attracted to death because it's so afraid of waking up. It's so afraid of the glory, it's so afraid of the grace, it's afraid of the power, that it will look for a substitute in the cosmos, and anything that would seem to serve as a substitute is really an idol. You know, like in the Bible it says, hold no graven images before the Lord thy God. We thought it was like golden calves and stuff like that, and totem poles. It was talking about anything that we value in time and space more than oneness, more than love, more than God. We've made an idol. We try to find the love in the form, but God didn't create the form. God didn't create this finite chaos. God is way beyond it. So that's why there's those 9 chapters, because there's an addiction to linear time, there's an attraction to death, and there's therefore an attraction to anything that the ego made up to take the place of divine love. So what we would say is romantic and interpersonal love and finding love in relationships and everything, it's like the old country song, looking for love in all the wrong places, looking for love in too many faces. Couldn't be any wiser. The country singers have been singing about it all along. Yay! The Wisdom Award for Best Country Performer. Yeah. And so, when you go for the love in the form, you end up with an achy, breaky heart. But when you start to say, no, there's nothing inherently wrong about any of this form, it's just mirroring and reflecting back what's going on in my consciousness that has to be healed. So if I project control issues onto my partner, I've got control issues in my mind that I have to work on. If I project fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, all kinds of guilt and shame around anything, then those are just still issues that are still up for healing. And so they're actually doing a great favor by reflecting it back. They're actually showing a closer look at the mind, because it's such intense mirroring. Now that's giving it over and seeing it from a positive way, but again, the ego's goal is a substitute for love. It wants to make its own version of love that's so enticing, so alluring, so tempting, that you get lost in the goal for the form and you forget about the goal of love within, like within your heart. So it very easily slips over into codependency. Out of 7 billion people, you get involved in one of these relationships and you notice that you're very concerned about their behavior. For the rest of the 7 billion, it's not that important. They can do what they want. You're indifferent. Actually indifferent. But for the one that you're partnered up with, then the behavior becomes important. You see, and then the control comes out, and then all the fears that have been kept down out of awareness start to come up and out, because the God substitute is not going to live up to that. And then the ego is going to blame. So you said forever, you promised, we agreed upon, da-da-da-da-da-da. It's always going to fall short, because the goal for the setup and the pursuing of the relationship was egoic. It wasn't wasn't of God. So, in that sense, you know, it's like that song, Love the One You're With. It's more, you're trying to really have an appreciation and a gratitude and cultivate that real deep sense of love with everything and everyone that comes your way. But it's very different from trying to make it into the box of the romantic. You know, Anna and Julie coming in there, but you just accepted it. And they helped you out in that ways. But it wasn't like you went in with a goal for Anna or Julie. It was like they were more like angels. They come in, they offer a blessing, and they go their way. And what's wrong with that? Well, to the ego, there's no continuity in that. The ego would say, well, now if Andy had married Anna or Julie, then we're talking a little bit of substance, continuity, in time. Remember, in the chaos, in the finite chaos, that's what goes for. Now, we were talking the other day, we were laughing about, you know, silver anniversary, 25, gold anniversary, 50, and is it, what is it, platinum?
Dead.
Just the very thought of 75 years married equates with dead for Joe. But you see, diamond. I've got to get these metaphors right. Diamond, that's much better than platinum. That's more like an American Express card or something. These get silver, gold. I've got to keep my metaphors right. I'll check. Marriages, American Express cards. But really, you see, the ego is saying the continuity is in linear time. So the longer the relationship, the better. That's why people cheer those long marriages, because they go, well, you hung in there for such a long time. Nobody asks the quality of the relationship. You might have been fighting and bickering for 50 years. You know, and what's good about that? But it's the longevity is continuity, and the ego looks for continuity in linear time. And that's why it's trying to get the right form and make sure the form lasts as long as it can. And you get more brownie points in heaven. Somehow you're going to get through the gates if you've done more time with one person. It doesn't really work that way. It's the continuity is in the purpose. When you're following your intuition, your joy, your happiness, and let the form just be given, be what it is, then you're right on. You know, that's how you zoom right into the kingdom of heaven, within. But you see, those are two different definitions of continuity. One looks for it in linear time, which God did not create, and then one looks for it in forgiveness, which is staying present, not getting into the grievances and the worry, just staying totally present. So, I mean, that made all the difference for me, and I was glad I had a pretty good intuitive sense of that when I started on this journey, because then the Spirit called me to go to all these, 31 countries and 49 states and all this travel, and I had different travel companions, different translators in different countries. I had many different characters that showed up to help me fulfill my glorious happy function. But I wasn't attached to them. It wasn't like, oh, thank you for that travel partner, don't ever take them away. It was more, thank you for that translator, but don't ever take them away. You know, it was more, thank you. And wow, didn't that go wonderful? It was such a collaborative effort. And okay, I'm open to whatever. When you can stay that open and that focused on your purpose, then that's where the joy comes in. You don't have to be trying to become dependent on the form, because as soon as you become dependent on the form, then the fear of loss comes in. Something could be taken away from me. We talked about that, loss of a partner. You know, that's where the fear comes in. It's really fear of love, but it takes the form of fear of loss.
Is it like the pain that I feel from, say, a special relationship is like the love I'm kind of withholding or not extending? Could you say that?
Yeah, because you can't.
It's showing me what I'm not.
Yeah, you can't be invested in both. So, yeah, it's like misinvesting. And the more you come into purpose, the more you start to see that you're giving and you're receiving from that purpose, and it's glorious. But it's more of, it's still trying to pump life into a failing idol, and that's why when people say, "Oh, my life is falling apart, my life is falling apart," I say, that's good, let it. Your fragmented perception has to fall apart. The container has to crack for the spirit to pour through. Like Jesus said, you can't put new wine in old wineskins. You can't find happiness, peace, love, and joy in fragmented perception. Literally, perception has to be reordered and expanded. For years we've been hearing about it, expand your consciousness. That's what they talked about in the 60s even. Let's expand our consciousness. That's good. That was right on, man. Just keep expanding your consciousness and you'll really get happy. But it doesn't mean that there's certain forms that you have to aim for and have goals for. That just still freezes it into boxes, People say, this is what a good marriage looks like. I think you could easier say, this is what a good marriage feels like. Because you feel freedom, you feel joy, you feel happiness. But looks, we're not meant to freeze it down into the form. I'm opening to quantum relationships. The more I get into quantum physics, I'm like, I like that. I like that expansive feeling of feeling, in love with everyone, and then when whoever you're with is going to feel that big-heartedness. Like watching that movie today and hearing his last words, and seeing Anna, and then opening up the card from Anna, and then having this big, like a hug through a card. But that was a nice experience for me, but it's very different than trying to hold on to form. We've had in our communities, very, very guided marriages and guided divorces. And there's a joy in both, because you're following the guidance. You see how in the world it's a stigma. We celebrate birth, we mourn death. We celebrate marriage, we mourn divorce. And it really doesn't have anything to do with the forms. If we follow our heart, we follow our guidance, and expanding our consciousness, that's where the joy comes in expanding our consciousness, not being so locked in. But you see how different that is from the world's ways, you say the word divorce, oh, that's too bad. I'm here. It is soon to be terrible. But, maybe as a minister they would let me perform divorces or something, too. I have a lot of fun performing marriages. Our divorce minister today will be...
I return you now to yourselves.
I always like humor that shows the quantum, that everything is perfectly in divine order. Like Steve Martin, so funny, made his movie L.A. Story, and it shows an ATM. It's got all the people lined up with their cards to access the ATM, and all the robbers lined up with their guns. And so the guy goes to the ATM and takes out, you see the money come out, and then one of the robbers steps forth with the guns. I'll be your robber tonight. And they exchange. Very pleasant. He's making fun of how laid back and pleasant LA is. I'll be your robber tonight. Okay. Then the next one gets the money. I'll be your robber tonight. And this just goes on. That's Steve Martin humor. But you see, that's quantum. It's like, he's poking fun. He's actually hinting that you can be laid back and seem to get robbed. And it happens so much too. He's poking fun too at the frequency. But
you don't even choose to rob you.
Yeah. It's a given. Yeah, it's all given.